For your robot's eyes, I am going to suggest Booleans difference. You could do circular eyes, but I think it's easier to actually get the shape that you want if you can use a different object and kind of model it to the shape that you have there, especially if you want to keep your divisions down. So let's start with that. So in this case, I'm going to just do one eye at a time, right? I'm going to do one eye and then I'll duplicate the whole thing over to the other side. So remember we talked about boxing in that shape that we want. So I definitely want to have, a edge loop above and below my eye, and I'm also going to put one in the center. And I'm not going to worry about these two sides. Putting that edge loops down the axis are going to interrupt my curve. So this is going to work just fine. So that's just kind of getting my base shape ready, and then let's get the cutting shape ready. So we'll make another cylinder and, rotate it to 90 degrees, and then we'll bring it up close to where the eye is. And we're going to remember we only want 8 subdivisions here, so we don't have very many cuts to make when we make our Boolean. All right, so let's kind of get that set up. I'm going to pull it out a little bit, and we can kind of scale it to the shape of the eyeball or the eye hole that we want to make. And mine is a little bit taller than it is wide, so you can kind of think about doing that to your eye. And I'm also thinking about rotating it this way, so it's kind of coming out from the center. That's actually not where it is, right? So we might think about if I place it where it wants to be, how would it be rotating out from the center? So something like this probably looks okay. And then let's look at this with our wireframe on shaded view too. So we can make sure that it's staying within those edge loops, which it's not. Okay, so maybe we can make it smaller, or we could move those edge loops. We can also, if we want to, be really careful with it and line it up with these curves here, are the vertices in the center. Let's see if I can do that here. So there's the vertex in the center. That's this one right here is what I'm talking about. Maya, do you want to do that for me? Oh, I see the red arrow is highlighted. That's what I want. All right, so I've got it really perfectly centered on that vertex right there. And now I'm ready to make my Boolean cut. So I'll see if I think that's about in the right spot. So let's select our base object first, then shift select our cutting object. We'll go to Mesh, Booleans, Difference. And you'll notice it makes this, interior shape, which we don't want. So I'm going to change my classification to normal instead of edge. And then I get the shape I want. Now it's not able to smooth it yet, right? Because we need to fix up our geometry a little bit. So, oops. Make sure those cuts go in the right spot. Right there to there. So we're going to cut on the diagonals. That's 2, 3, and 4. So that should help a little bit, but we're still getting some weirdness there, and that's because we have vertices right on top of each other. So we'll just grab all those vertices and go to Edit Mesh Merge. Now when we smooth it, we get a nice circular hole, or oval hole, I guess. And now we're going to want to make that happen on the other side. Now my eyeballs are slightly different, and I can change the one on the other side later on. I think it's easier to duplicate this over. So I'm going to delete half of my faces, and then I'll just select this as an object. My pivot point is right in the center there, so that's great, and I don't need to freeze transformations because everything's at 0 and 1. So I'm going to hold down J. Oh, I need to duplicate it. Control D, and then hold down J and scale it over. Now I'll select both of these objects and go to Mesh Combine. And once more, if I smooth it, you'll see I still have a seam there. So I have to select all my vertices and go to Edit Mesh Merge. All right, that got it nice and smooth. And now I've got, two eyes there that are lining up pretty well with where I wanted them. My image plane isn't perfect either. And then I could, if I wanted to, kind of move some of these vertices around to give it a little bit of character, that its eyes are not exactly the same. Maybe it's making a little bit of a face, something like that, if you want to, but we'll also play with those a little bit later when we get to wonking. So that's my recommendations for the eye.